Hatter finishes singing his song and informs Peter and Alice that Rumpelstiltskin might know where the White Rabbit is. Rumpelstiltskin comes forward and says that he will tell them the information they're looking for if they can guess his name. They were just introduced, though not much of a challenge. So he tells them that the White Rabbit is hanging out at Hook's lair, tells them where Hook's lair is, and sends them on their way. They turn around to ask the Hatter one more question, and suddenly everyone in the private room is gone. They turn back around to the club, and the club is completely empty. They make their way outside into the empty street, and even the street lights are off. And if this were a play, curtain, intermission, go buy some stuff and be back in 15 minutes. But it's a movie, so we're just going to keep going forward. They're outside, it's dark, it's scary, and they go right into the next song, which is a very important song to me because it is the first song I ever wrote for a musical. Specifically intended to be in that specific musical. And it's very important to me to this day because it's the song that told me that I can do this. And it is Out in the Darkness. The Adventures of Alice and Peter in Grownup-Land, Track 9, Out in the Darkness. Alice, what are you afraid of? You've been down streets like this before. The lack of a light shouldn't add to the fright, it's the same as before. There are dangers out in the darkness. There are monsters under the bed. You grow up and find that despite all the lies, it's not all in your head. There are wolves hiding deep in the shadows. There are trolls hiding under the bridge. There are pirates in the waters and witches in the woods, and I can't face them like this. You ask me what I'm afraid of. You look and see nothing here. Typical Peter, typical boy with nothing to fear. You look and see silly Alice. You look and say, silly girl, while you live your brave life with never a thought to what might unfurl. My life was once filled with wonder, adventure around every turn. But you're betrayed once or twice. You lose a young life and somehow you learn. There are wolves hiding deep in the shadows. There are trolls hiding under the bridge. There are pirates in the waters and witches in the woods, and I can't face them like this. The lions and tigers and bears have gone. The Jabberwocky hunts you no more. Still the night is full of surprises. I'm afraid of what life has in store. Oh God, Peter, I've been hurt before. There are wolves hiding deep in the shadows. There are trolls hiding under the bridge. There are pirates in the waters and witches in the woods, and I can't face them like this. Come on, we'll face them together. Alice and Peter barely have time to finish their song before the Heart Gang catches up to them. Alice and Peter take off, round another corner, and run directly into a pirate-themed gang. Peter starts to take out his frustration, being a little sarcastic, but Alice grabs his hand and says, run, and the Hearts catch up with them. Little moment of confusion, but the Hearts decide they want to fight the pirates more than they want to fight Alice and Peter. So Alice and Peter take that distraction and run away as quickly as they can. Peter is frustrated, confused, and demands that if he's going to continue on this adventure with Alice, then he needs to know what's in that purse. Alice at first doesn't want to, but finally gives in, and this is to me where it becomes important that you have someone that is both a singer and an actor, specifically for this song. You often end up with either actors who sing or singers who act in most musicals. And you can tell the difference when you watch, but what they're strong at, what they're weak at. But there are some actors that pull off performances that let you realize they're truly both. For me, one of those examples is Anne Hathaway in Les Mis. Her performance in that is just beautiful. Her voice is amazing, but she acts the heck out of that song, and is why she won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress that year. I would love to get someone that could pull that kind of performance out of this song, the drama, while still remaining beautiful in the vocal quality. And that's kind of how I envisioned the song. Wonderful. The Adventures of Alice and Peter in Grownup-Land, Track 10, Wonderful. Go, I don't need you to stay like this. Go, I didn't ask you along. Everyone leaves. Why should I believe you would be different? Everyone leaves. Why should we drag this on? When I was young, I believed the world was wonderful. And growing up, I dared to dream it was true. I fell in love. No, I believed he was wonderful. He held my heart and dared me to dream it was true. I gave him all I was, the wonder of my childhood. Everything I had was his to hold. We faced the future hand in hand. We never feared tomorrow, but tomorrow turns the heat. Too deep is cold. He gave a ring. We had a home that seemed wonderful. And for a time, I dared to dream it was so. We planned a family, my God, our life seemed so wonderful. And looking in, you might have thought it was so. I gave him all I was, the wonder of my childhood. Everything I had was his to hold. We faced the future hand in hand. We never feared tomorrow, but tomorrow turns the heat. Too deep is cold. I bore his love 9 months, a wonderful illusion. He was my husband and the father of my child. But 9 months came and left me death and disillusion. A life ended too quickly. A love that was a lie. Go. It's not your problem, it never was. Go. Whatever we had, now it's gone. Everyone leaves. Why should I believe you would be different? Everyone leaves. Why should we drag this on? When Alice finishes singing her song, she explains to Peter that even though she miscarried at 9 months, she still had to go into labor. They still had to induce her to deliver her child. And she had to do it alone because her husband couldn't bring himself to be there, and he left. So when her child was delivered, and the hospital took pictures of her holding her beautiful, perfectly formed baby boy, she took those pictures alone. And her husband didn't come back, saying to her that every time he looked at her, every time he thought of her, all he could think of was what he had lost. And so for the last year, she's been carrying around a little thumb drive with this pictures of her and her baby boy alone. And never looked at him, never loaded him onto a computer, just carrying him around in her purse. And that was all that she had left of the life that she had lost, and no one was going to take it from her. Peter tries to apologize, tells her that he's so sorry, and she just tells him to leave. And he tries to argue that no, he'll stay with her, he'll fight for her. And she says that if he doesn't leave, she will scream and give their position away to any gang in the area that's looking for them. So Peter reluctantly walks away. And this one's really close for me. When I wrote the original version of the script, the pain I was thinking of was the pain of my little sister, who had not too terribly long before miscarried, but it was earlier in the pregnancy, and it was different enough to feel fictionalized when I actually put it on paper, and when we did the initial read through. But more recently, and several years ago, she miscarried again, and this time full term. And we did the pictures. It was the hardest night of her life. She told me recently when I talked to her about it, it was one of the hardest nights of mine. Everybody that was there, even those of us that didn't go through what she was going through, will tell you it was one of the hardest nights we've ever had. But we all did stay, including her husband, the man that would become her husband, and took pictures with that beautiful, fully formed baby. And so a lot of that really did inform how I've rethought of this scene with Alice and explaining this pain. It makes it a lot more real for me, even though I haven't gone through it, and I obviously, I can't look at any woman that's gone through this, and I certainly can't speak for all women that have gone through this, but I could at least speak for the one, and make this as real as I can for her. Now, unfortunately, she had the better ending. She isn't in the situation that Alice is in. She has a great husband. They have since gone on to have a beautiful little girl that we all love very much, and we love him and we love her, and it's a great family. But that time was terrible, and I have known a number of women in the past that, as my sister put it, it's a make or break in any relationship. Fortunately for her, it was a make, but it isn't for everyone. So Alice sits there after telling her story, just crying and wondering what she's going to do now that she's alone again. And an old woman pushing a shopping cart walks up and begins to strike up a conversation with her. And the shopping cart is filled with lots of things like shell bikini tops and broken wands and dirty tiaras and things from various, could be recognized from various fairy tales and children's stories. And she sits down, and the fairy godmother sings All Magic Does to Alice. The Adventures of Alice and Peter in Grownup-Land, Track 11, All Magic Does. Have you ever heard the stories that start once upon a time? They all have happy endings, and sometimes they even rhyme. But happy ever after is for children, you could say. The magic lasts for a little while, then life gets in the way. I once knew a girl who dreamed she'd meet a prince, so I waved my wand and let the spell commence. Of course she was a vision at the ball. A prince stood a chance, of course he had to fall. But that's not the end of the story, no ma'am, not by a mile. All magic does is break your heart in style. Have you ever asked what happens when the story says the end? When the fairy tale is over and life has to begin? When in-laws, jobs, mortgages, and babies come along? Is it all still bibbidi-boppity at the ending of the song? I once knew a girl who lived down at the beach, but every night she dreamed of city streets. So we made a deal that cost her everything she ever knew, for a prince in a sky-rise penthouse with a panoramic view. But that's not the end of the story, no ma'am, not by a mile. All magic does is break your heart in style. They fell in love as rarely what you wanted it to be. They stood upon their wishes instead of on their own 2 feet. Divorce is always messy, betrayal always hurts. Sometimes what we want most of all is the thing that we lose first. I wish I could be there for you like when you were a child, when everything was magical, mysterious, and wild. But you can't wish your pain away, that's the price of being grown. This is a part of the fairy tale when you have to do it on your own. But it's not the end of the story, no ma'am, not by a mile. It's up to you to end this tale in style. So the fairy godmother finishes her song, gives Alice a few last words of encouragement, and heads on her way. Uh, Alice then looks up and sees the white rabbit still holding her purse. Look around and sneak into a nearby warehouse. Alice raises up her courage and follows him in. Now, we get to Peter. Peter is walking down the street, generally feeling sorry for himself. And this is the point where I kind of need to stop and say that this is not even remotely autobiographical. Especially with the song coming up, people would look at this and go, man, Paul must have really had a terrible childhood, terrible parents. Those are not true. I had a wonderful childhood. I had great relationships with my parents when I was a kid. I have great relationships with my still supportive parents now. So I just don't want anybody to get any crazy ideas that this is in any way based on me and my relationship with my family, because it is not. This story, and especially the story of Peter, came from, in my mid to late 30s, questioning what it meant to be a grown-up. I think a lot of people hit that. We hit it a little later in life than we used to. I've always joked that my generation was the first generation to not grow up. But that's based on shallow things like, I still read comic books and I still play video games. Nothing really serious, but there are serious issues out there as well. And, Peter, his entire personality in the original book and of course the original play that came out around the same time, Peter Pan, was based on the fact that little boys live in the moment and they live for themselves. Their world hasn't grown beyond that. And Peter Pan in the book, a couple of years later, Wendy comes back and visits him again, and there's a new fairy there instead of Tinkerbell. And Tinkerbell, as all fairies in this world, didn't live very long. They have very short lifespans, and Peter doesn't even remember Tinkerbell. She's come and gone. A new fairy has taken her place. No memory of her at all. And that's kind of a scary thought. But I mean, it's not unusual in a child, but it is. If that's who you are as a grown man, still living for yourself, if you're fighting for someone else, it's not really for them. It's because fighting's fun, and that defines you. That's, that's not good. And so as Peter is contemplating these things, and again, generally feeling sorry for himself, it leads him into the song, The Boy. The Adventures of Alice and Peter in Grownup-Land, Track 12, The Boy. That was a hell of a thing to say to me, that I would leave her. It's not my problem anyway. I've tried so hard to be so different, to prove I didn't have to be this way. My life was never easy. I guess whose really is. My home was broken early, another broken little kid. But I swore I will be different. I won't hurt the ones I love. If that's the cost of adulthood, then I won't be growing up. So I became the boy that all men wish to be, and lived my life from day to day. It was all a game to me, 'cause I could never break a promise if I never made it known. And I could never be my father if I lived my life alone. The years have tried to change me. There are bills that must be paid. I may have hurt some people, but there are games that must be played. It isn't really easy, this never growing up. Is this life really worth living if I'm the only one I love? Can I remain the boy that all men wish to be, and live my life from day to day? Is it all a game to me? I have never broke a promise, but have I never told a lie? Do I live my brave life alone, 'cause I'm afraid to say goodbye? She's not the first person to feel alone. She's not the first person to fear the dark. She's not the first person to push away those in danger of touching her heart. I've tried so hard to change my ways, but the game is on. Enough's enough. I am the boy who stays the same, the boy who's never growing up. Still, that was a hell of a thing to say to me. You know what? Forget her. It's not my problem anyway.